Do you ever imagine wanting to own a dino in a land that is unforgiving, whilst almost constantly starving and dehydrated? Do you ever want to fear that a T-Rex will swoop in and eat you and your friends at any waking moment? The fact that the game tip tells you that the beaches are safe space, but in reality it's one of the more terrifying places to start off? Then ARK Survival Evolved is the game for you. In July of 2015, ARK was released in early access on Steam by a company called Studio Wildcard, who helped develop the game alongside Instinct Games, Effecto Studios, and Virtual Basement. For those of you who haven't heard about ARK, it's an action-adventure survival game with massive maps with almost 150 creatures roaming each server, capable of up to 100 players at one time with either PvP or PvE elements. It's no wonder why tons of people were eating it up left, right, and center. The premise of the game, to survive and tame yourself some awesome dinosaurs, caught everyone's attention. Video after video was being released every day and it was worth the watch. Figuring out how this game worked was cool as hell to see and it made me long to play it. After releasing for consoles around 2016, I was able to get my hands on it for the first time, and thus my journey with ARK had begun. Only because I was still a console pleb then. When you first spawn in, if you aren't that brave, like myself, you will choose an easy location, such as the beach on the island, the only map that was available when the game first released. You'll encounter small creatures that don't pose too much of an issue most of the time, and are easily handleable for the primitive weapons you're able to make at this point. You may end up encountering some high-level creatures that make their way towards the beach, which can make for either a fun or frustrating time. I've encountered raptors and rexes more times than I'd like to admit at level 5. The one thing you'll find immediately is that the game is gorgeous to look at, but don't let that fool you. It has some issues that haven't been dealt with since its debut, but we'll get into that later. From what I know, Wildcard is primarily made up of artists within the company, which is clear to see, as creature models and the maps are exceptional. From the glistening of the wet rocks near the beach to the look of the terrifying wrecks, the artists have done their job extremely well. Exploring the various biomes like the redwoods, tundra, swamps, and desert landscapes are equally as fantastic, with the flora and fauna being designed for each region, making the game feel more organic. With tons of DLC maps, 2 of which for free, there are tons of biomes and places to explore. It's utterly fantastic. To go with the game's aesthetics, the sound design's been done pretty freaking well. You're able to identify creatures by the sound of their footsteps to the roars and squeaks, as each creature has a unique call. Damage being done to the player via hunger, dehydration, hyper, and hypothermia are great in-game mechanics. You are able to listen to the world, and only after a few hours in the game get used to the noises of the land and help you either want to avoid or enter certain areas. It can be a pretty fun time depending on what you hear. Maybe it's a Rex, maybe it's not, maybe it's something absolutely crazy. Most of the time, you end up exploring anyway. The UI isn't too terrible to get to grips with. Whether it's paying attention to hunger, thirst, health, or your stamina bar, everything is conveniently located. Being hungry and thirsty is something that the vanilla game throws at you consistently. For your first playthrough, I recommend this, though there are mods and server settings to make things a little more realistic if you're into that. The leveling system and skill tree is very easy to navigate and use. Gaining experience through the game by crafting items, killing dinos, and even just gathering material is quite well done. It's not too difficult to level, but it can be extremely grindy at times. Leveling up grants you skill and engram points. Skill points are used to strengthen your character, whether that be having more health, more stamina, being able to carry more weight, less food and water consumption, longer lasting breath underwater, a better crafting skill, being able to handle biome conditions better, or being able to take more torpidity without being knocked out. All of which are extremely useful, and you'll spread them out depending on the build of your character. Engram points are used to unlock things you can craft in order to proceed, from starting tools and weapons all the way to guns and futuristic armor. These will effectively unlock different technologies through the game. With hundreds of engrams to choose from, each one will help you become more efficient at building, crafting, being able to ride and tame dinos, and even combat. From Stone Age to firearms, this game has it all. As is common these days with survival games and most online games, as far as at least Steam goes, mod support is something that ARK has done extremely well. With a massive community of wonderful modders that take the time and effort making things from quality of life mods like Structures Plus to game overhauls like Primal Fear, which I myself have just gotten into. And for those of you who would like to know what Primal Fear's like, here's a couple clips for you.
Holy shit! Why is it so angry at me? Why is it so angry? I didn't even shoot the fucking thing! I just was walking in like, oh yeah, by the way, that fucking area we want to take energy because there's a fucking Kentrosaurus here. Yeah, right! I should have just shut my fucking mouth and never went over it. I'm not even near it. 19.7 million health. How about you calm the fuck down?
So those are all the great things about ARK, the things I really enjoy about it. You know, the stuff that you can either download or whatever the case may be, that's what ARK has to offer in a positive light. But you know what it doesn't have? Proper netcoding, collision detection, and the hitboxes can be utterly atrocious at times. I've put 50 plus hours in the game this week alone, not to mention hours on the PS4 and the Windows 10 version, because crossplay reasons. It's not to say I don't like the game, I just don't think it should have been released as a full title in 2018. I like to look at ARK as a beautiful disaster. I don't mean a disaster like it didn't sell well or isn't perceived by the public well. It has overall overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. It is a disaster because the game is utterly broken 80% of the time. Let's just look at dinosaur models for a minute. A Brachiosaurus is walking near some rocks, and its legs just stop giving a fuck about what they're supposed to do. Glitches and bugs with creatures are something you just have to get used to. They're consistent. It's broken, but most of the time you can deal with it. Still, it should have been looked after before a 1.0 released. Still hasn't yet to be touched. One thing that grinds my fucking gears though is the hitboxes. There are times you shoot something with an arrow or a shotgun shell or hell, even a tranq dart that took a lot of resources and time to make, and the creature just completely ignores the fact that it got hit. There are times when I see Dodos, an extremely low level creature, wandering the beach with an arrow in its neck and it couldn't be bothered. Though amusing, most times it can be a gigantic piss off in the middle of attempting to tame or combat. On PvP servers, there are damage numbers that appear over creatures and players when damage is received. I'm not much of a PvP player myself, and PvE servers lack the mentioned visible damage numbers. The reason why I'm saying anything about it is that when turned on, you know 100% if you hit your target or not. There are even times creatures will make a pain noise and go into a brief pain state and no damage has been done whatsoever. Once again, why is this still in the game? Why hasn't it been fixed? And the netcode. My fucking god, the netcode. You hop on a server with, say, 30 people on most times. The map's just filled to the brim with buildings and tame dinos as far as the eye can see. You just lag at every waking moment. Trying to hit a tree won't grant you wood for about 30 seconds. It's the reason why I bought my own server to play with a couple friends on our own time. The game's just not playable on official servers, and I've got fairly good internet. Like, seriously, Wildcard, fucking fix it. My last angry point I have to make is that the game has the worst collision detection I've ever seen in a game, and I've played a lot of those really shitty indie games where collision detection doesn't exist really at all. So, okay, maybe it's not the worst collision detection, but it's pretty fucking bad. Now, this may have to do with hitboxes, and I'm not really sure, I'm not a developer, but I'm gonna use an example here. You've just finished building a large stone house, which no creature besides alpha variants can penetrate. To boot, you add a perimeter fence that is made up of stone walls about 4 high. So, you know, at this point, you're feeling pretty safe. So you take your new built crossbow, a few arrows, and a daring attitude, and shoot the fuck out of a Triceratops thinking you'll be able to hide behind your walls in safety. Well, aren't you fucking wrong? Because every creature in this godforsaken game has the inert ability to stick most of its body, if not its head, through stone and metal walls and kill you, while you think you're safe. Now, sometimes they don't always do this, but more often than not, they'll kill you. Even without a perimeter wall, they will find you in your house and kill you, destroy your stuff, and move on. That's usually how it goes. Now, I've looked into this bug a little bit myself in the past because this is something that consistently happens even until today. And what I find is that if you have your door closed most of the time, you'll tend to stay safe. The moment it's open, it's almost like you're not behind this wall. So that might be a thing to it as well. But most of the time, you die. But I hear you say, "Unimportant! I have just built a platform high above the creature." To which I laugh and watch as apparently that trike now stands taller than the fucking platform, because yes, that's a thing, sticking you on its horn like a kebab, killing you yet again. This is the case with most things in this game. Taking a raft you've built through a small opening in a river, no raft should fit through. Creatures glitching through walls and killing players and destroying things inside the house with doors closed, in what should be, safety behind walls you've built. Once again, another bug that has been reported since early access and not one thing done about it. It hasn't even been looked at. Now, these things don't make the game unplayable. Frankly, they add to it. Yeah, the dino can stick its head through the wall and attack you, but that means you can attack it back. You start seeing how many small river openings you were able to make it through with a raft that you've built your fortress on. Things like that can make the game something that it isn't supposed to be, which at times can be amusing and fun. I've had moments in ARK laughing so fucking hard I've nearly fallen out of my chair. Though saying that, these problems shouldn't go unchecked. As a developer, you should have the integrity to listen to the player base and fix issues that are being brought to your attention. I'm seeing a massive lack of this these days with games that are being released in early access. Wildcard has released paid DLCs for this game with problems still persisting. The newest one being released this week. Now, don't get me wrong, Ragnarok, Scorched Earth, Aberration, and Extinction are amazing maps to play on, and are as gorgeous as the rest of the game, adding new variants of creatures and biomes to the game's setting. But still, in my eyes, it's unacceptable. Yet, I find myself still playing this game more and more. Maybe as a community we are just used to it. We just move on as much as it's pissed us off. I still find myself coming back to the game in hopes that it's fixed these issues, and yet it remains the same. I can't tell you how many times I've joked around, saying, "ARK, don't ever change." But frankly, Wildcard, you've made something utterly gorgeous. What fuck is it a mess?
So there you go. Hey, shark. Yeah, big ass shark.